Well, hello there and welcome to Mind Your Business. I'm Jennifer Anderson, host of the show. I'm also the Executive Director of the Georgina Chamber of Commerce. Very excited to have this show today because, of course, in Georgina, we are dealing with businesses and organizations who are feeling the impact of COVID and the pandemic. But today we're talking about tourism. We're talking about tourism in the area, about the businesses and organizations who are impacted by tourism and who are now impacted by what's happening in terms of the pandemic. I have two gentlemen on the show with me today who are the perfect guests to talk about tourism in this community. First is Jim Beechey. He wears a number of hats in our community, but today he's wearing the hat of our chair of the tourism committee for the Georgina Chamber of Commerce. He also is working with Central Counties Tourism. Hi, Jim. Thanks for
Hey, how are you? Thanks, Jen.
It's
Glad
nice
to be on. Thanks for inviting me.
Yeah, it's nice to have you here, and you are a wealth of knowledge when it comes to tourism in Georgina. My other guest is also a wealth of tourism knowledge. Chuck Thibeault is joining us. He's the Executive Director of Central Counties Tourism. Hi, Chuck.
Hello, Jennifer. Thanks for having me on. Really appreciate it.
Chuck, I'm going to start with you. For anybody who doesn't know, what is Central Counties Tourism? What is this organization all about?
So Central Counties Tourism is one of 13 provincial tourism regions. And our job is really to support, promote, and develop the tourism assets. And for us, our region is all of Durham region, all of York region, and Headwaters tourism region to the west.
Right. So, of course, because we are in Georgina, I don't want to say that those other areas aren't as important, but today we're looking at York region and being a part of that north end of York region. But it certainly is, as businesses are navigating what's happening, it's nice to have an organization that is so involved in tourism and a valuable resource for businesses at any time, but especially right now.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. We do our best, that's for sure.
Yes. Jim, you are also actively involved with Central Counties Tourism. What's your role with the organization?
Okay, I'm the York region, one of the York region representatives on the board of directors of Central Counties, and I serve on a couple of their committees. A very important one for tourism operators and event planners is the partnership committee, and Central Counties Tourism has an allocation of funds from the ministry that they have available as grants to support tourism initiatives in the various regions within the catchment area.
Right, and this is something that you are a volunteer with, active.
That's right. In addition to that, of course, I am on the board of directors of the chamber, as you know, and as you mentioned, and also I'm chairing the tourism committee for the Chamber of Commerce. But you just mentioned tourism in Georgina. It's kind of a split role. The Chamber of Commerce works very closely with the town, and in loose terms, the town staff, economic development, tourism staff focus on external promotion of tourism, and we here at the Chamber focus more on the experience that visitors will see when they get here. And then more recently, because of the current situation, I've just been asked to sit on a York region initiative called the York Region Business Recovery Support Program. It's got 3 or 4 arms to it, but one is devoted to tourism and culture, looking at ways the region can be there to help get the tourism back up and running, whenever that is exactly.
Well, I think that's the big question. It's the big theme around everything that we're doing these days. It's that when. So I know, like, Chuck, how you have a business plan, you have a model, you have a strategic plan and community plans in place, but what you're not expecting is for something like this. So how do you deal with the change in what's happening within the tourism industry?
You know, in terms of our direction, not much has changed. Our business mandate, our focus is to help build the capacity of the stakeholders, to help them have a better chance of being successful for themselves. So all that's really changed for us is now the tactics that we have to use to try to help those businesses through this time. It's a lot, tourism is not something people want to talk about right now, to be honest with you, right? Nobody wants strangers coming to their town, and nobody wants to go anywhere. This is the perfect time, and I've been saying this for years, that tourism really is a byproduct of a vibrant community. So all the businesses that we consider tourism are the same reasons that your residents want to live there. The restaurants, the beaches, the attractions, the culture, the heritage. The businesses that are there for your local community first. And because it's such a great little concentration of stuff, then a whole ton of more people want to come and see it too. So what we've been doing is talking with our stakeholders to how do we help them tell their story to their local community and keep themselves top of mind for the people that are, maybe down in Newmarket and Aurora that know the area and are going to feel safe when it's safe to do so. Keep them top of mind so people will come up to Georgina and spend their money to help those businesses out. Most tourism businesses are small operators, and I always joke that when you're a small operator, you're so busy working in your business, you don't have a lot of time to work on your business. So right now we are helping our stakeholders work on their business, so when the time comes that they can reopen and start to welcome their guests back, they're going to be in a better position to do so.
Well, and I love how you started that answer, because you really talked about the fact that you really haven't changed the mandate of helping tourism and tourism-related businesses. I think for most people right now, when there's so many unknowns, they want to feel like they're not alone. So having that organization who says, we got this, we're changing, we're pivoting a little bit, but we are here to support you in whatever you need. It makes people feel like they aren't alone.
Yeah, and I think that is very helpful. And the town of Georgina and the Tourism Advisory Committee is also doing a really good job of working with the stakeholders, and Jim can talk to this better than I can, about getting people to stop seeing themselves as competition and start seeing themselves as each other's best friends to create a bigger destination. If your main street, if the 3 restaurants on the main street or 4 restaurants on the main street think of themselves as competition, then they're not going to build a destination. Versus if they think of themselves as people that are trying to get more people to come and eat, those 4 restaurants, if I walk into one restaurant and it's full and I go, oh man, thanks for coming, we're full right now, why don't you go over to go see Joe's restaurant? Suddenly people will travel from further away because they know there's great places to eat on that street.
Right. And we can certainly see that interaction with the Tourism Advisory Committee, correct, Jim? Like we see a lot of stakeholders working together.
Oh, definitely we do that. And I think we're doing a good job at the Chamber, and Jennifer and your staff are doing a good job of letting visitors know and people within town know what's open and what's closed, and helping people market their assets in different ways. Maybe they can make, and one of the things we're trying to do is have people buy gift certificates front that generate some revenue for the restaurants and some of the other businesses, so that the individual business have some revenue coming in. And then once the doors start opening, whenever that is and how slowly that might be, there's some customers going to start coming in that door. Of course,
right.
The gift certificate will be the start, and they'll buy something else. So that's one of the ways we're working with them.
Very good. Let's talk Central Counties tourism, because I know some of the programs have already been in place, and I know there's new ones that have been brought in light of the situation. Chuck, what is the virtual content program?
So what we're trying to do, actually we roll back, the one that we've actually just already rolled out, it's the virtual market. And we recognize all the stats from travel intention surveys show that people are really not going to want to go very far. but they still want to support local. So we've been working with our stakeholders individually to create a virtual market where people can, if a farm is open to deliver, or people can pick up fresh produce and meat and cheese and bread. We've been working with them, getting it up on our website, and then telling that story so that people from, like I said, from Newmarket or from Brock Township might come across to visit, the farms in your area, and the artists too. There's a lot of artists that are still doing art and can sell their art online and things like that. And what we are working now with is, whether it's the chamber or BIA or the municipality themselves, a lot of municipalities are doing the same sort of thing to try to convince people to, shop local. So when their websites are up and running, we tag into those as well. So if someone says, oh man, I really want to go to Clearwater Farm to pick this and this up, when they pull up the Clearwater Farm page, then there's also a link to the Georgina page of what's open. So people say, well, if I'm already heading out and, traveling 30 minutes, I'll do 2 or 3 other things. The virtual road trip. So we know that we're a rubber tire market. Very few people are, traveling internationally to come and see us. There are those that do, but for the most part, it's people who are in their cars who are coming to see us. So we sort of, branded ourselves as the road trip destination. And in this time when people aren't going on road trips, what we thought we would do is work with our stakeholders to build some compelling content out where we can put that up, we can tell their story, they can tell their story, Georgina can tell their story. The more there's no competition when it comes to marketing. The more places that will, can push that content out, the more people that are going to see it. Our spin is that it's all about trying to get them to remember the places they've seen, so that when it's safe to do so, they're like, oh man, I really loved, doing that virtual cooking class at that restaurant. I'm going to go to that restaurant now. Or I loved learning what I learned, about farming from Clearwater Farms. I'm bringing the family up when it's safe to do so.
Is it safe to say, because we aren't necessarily looking at tourists who are abroad coming to this area, that it is, that road trip destination? Or is it safe to say that we're just closing in that radius, maybe for the first few months, to allow staycations, to allow people to discover their own backyard, and they might be staying closer to home, but they've never really discovered the cultural experience that their community has to offer?
Yeah, for sure. I really think, build on what Chuck said, the stats that we're seeing is that it's going to be a while before people travel any great distances. So our first focus is probably going to be our own community, and those just touching it is going to be the first, and try to bring those people back to the restaurants, back to the shops and our BIAs and that sort of thing. That's definitely, people aren't going to be traveling any great distances. They're just not comfortable from everything that we're seeing. So our first line of tourists are going to be our own tourists, from our own community, getting them back into the shops and feeling comfortable and impressed. We can then build on that experience and telegraph that out through our other social media channels, et cetera, to let people know we're open and where it's just as good as ever.
Yeah, I think so. And it's, I don't know whether the word is, patriotic when it's so close to home, but that idea of, wanting to support Canada, support community, support local, and really tap into, and, shop local is such a cliche phrase, but so appropriate now more than ever, just to really discover what your community has to offer.
Yeah, and I also think that it has to do with familiarity, right? Familiarity is safety. So if you're familiar with a place, you're like, yeah, I know that place. I feel safe there. And as people do start to venture out, there's already going to be some heightened reservations and heightened emotions in leaving. So you want to start by going places where you feel comfortable, where you feel safe, and that bodes really, really well for a lot of the local establishments in every community, not just in Georgina, but everywhere. And they need to capitalize on that. At the end of the day, regardless of how much marketing and everything you're doing, the one message that I think all the businesses need to get across is, what have you done? What are you doing to to do everything possible to keep those visitors safe. And if you can convey that along with some great content and a great experience when people show up, you're going to see a quicker rebound than if you're not trying to explain it, that you're going through a lot of effort to do everything you can to keep the place clean and keep people distance and keep people safe.
Right.
We probably have one opportunity here that some other communities don't. And as we're a smaller community, and most of the shops are more or less neighbors. So I think it's just getting people to shop in their neighborhood rather than traveling afar. So I think we have a bit of a unique characteristic being a smaller community than some of the larger communities to our south.
I agree totally. Where that, we're still a part of the GTA in York region, yet we're very unique in terms of our small hamlets and communities. Jim, I am apprehensive to bring this up because I don't want you to be sad, but you have spearheaded and worked very hard on a Georgina community tourism plan in partnership. The Chamber has worked with the town of Georgina, and thanks to the leadership of Central Counties Tourism in order to make this happen. And we were nearing the end after about a year. We were going to present to council at the end of March, and of course that's been delayed. So let's talk the tourism plan.
Yeah, well, as you just said, we did develop a plan. We just didn't get it to council to be endorsed. But nevertheless, we can still act on a lot of those things that we suggest. Some of the communication strategies, obviously the message may have to be modified a little bit. But I know you and the staff over there, for example, are putting things in place for the summer to welcome people at the beaches. It may be a different experience than the one we were planning on offering them, but we're going to be there, and we're opening up more areas in the community where we're going to have staff available to help visitors. And maybe the visitors will be more residents this year, but nevertheless, we got to get those things over. So a lot of the features, things we built into the plan are still there. We're still going to try to do most of them. As I said, just slight modifications in terms of the messaging and how they're executed.
Right.
So I don't think it's not for naught. It's a 3-year plan too, so that's the good thing. So hopefully by the end of it, we'll meet all of our objectives. It's just a little slower getting there, perhaps.
Right. A great segue, because you're talking about pivoting a little bit with this plan. And as I was pulling up some notes and reading the Central Counties Tourism, I loved one line that kind of stood out for me on the Central Counties website. It said, Central Counties will be pivoting our direction to meet our stakeholders' needs as the COVID-19 crisis unfolds. Chuck, how do we do that? And, in an organization that really is continuing their mandate, in a community tourism plan that is really continuing to follow the same direction, how do we pivot a little bit to help the community prosper?
Well, I think switching our programs to virtual was one of the first things. Right? This is going to go through many stages. Right now, people want information. If they want information in a nice, orderly fashion, there is so much information to try to digest. How can what assistances are out there to help my business at a local level, a provincial level, at the federal level. We've been going through that for 6-7 weeks now. So the centralcounties.ca webpage is our business to business website. We have all of that listed out. So if you're looking for that one place to go, you can go there, and we are updating it daily as we are getting more information. We are uploading that information so that our stakeholders can take a look and see what's out there to help them out. So it's amazing how quick we are to adapt to things. So we've gone past the panic stage for the most part, and now we're in the anxious stage of the when. Not just the when, the what, right? We can't expect anyone, the government at the moment, to tell us when each of our businesses is going to be allowed to open. I don't think they know. And we are one industry of hundreds of different industries that are all wondering the same question. just as important for us is what is it going to look like? And I think that there's a lot of questions out there, and we're getting that every day from our stakeholders. What restrictions am I going to be under? What am I going to be able to do? Can I do this? I think at the end of the day, we've been working with the Tourism Industry Association of Ontario and all the different sector associations. I think it behooves us to plan ourselves. This is what I think we should do to make our guests feel better. Put your plans in place now. Have them ready, because at the end of the day, it's going to be York Public Health. I think that's the name of the organization that's going to say yes or yay or nay to whether or not the measures in place are adequate. So we're trying to feed that message to our stakeholders to start planning. You tell us, you tell the government, what does opening look like for you and or your industry? And that's something that, the Tourism Advisory Committee with Jim that can help, get all the shops together and help them craft a common one. So you're not reinventing the wheel 6 or 7 times. Same for the restaurants and your art attractions.
Well, and I think it's a little bit of a balance, and maybe Jim, you agree. It's public health can say yes, the doors are open. Certain services are now allowed to open, but that doesn't mean that people are automatically going to walk through the door. It may take time for people to feel like they can venture out, like they are going to go out and interact the way that they once did.
Yeah, they know everybody's got to feel safe, and that's one of the things that Chuck participated in this meeting with the York Region thing on last week, and is delivering that safe message is going to be very, very important. We have a bit of a strategy together that we can convey to the public that all of these businesses are safe. They're adhering to the protocol developed by health, and we have to work together so everybody's in sync and everybody's supporting that, all of the members. And we're even locally, we're going to do a session later this week where we're bringing in hospitality operators, event planners, who put them all on the same page and get everybody focusing on what needs to be done and helping deliver that message. As Chuck said earlier, they have to all work together. Every member of the hospitality community have to be conveying that same message that they and their competitors and everybody on that street, it's a safe place to go. This is definitely where collaboration is needed more than ever.
Gentlemen, what's on your wants list? If you could have anything, and I know that there's a lot of financial relief that's coming through from all levels of government. There's grants and loans that have been put in place, but nothing yet specifically for tourism. So is that something that's needed in this industry? Is it something that should wait 6 months or a year as people begin to transition back into some sense of normalcy? Chuck, I'll start with you.
Oh, our wants. I want a vaccine. But in knowing that that's still a ways off. Let's talk in realities. I think what our industry needs is a revenue recovery plan, more so than all the measures that are currently in place. A lot of them is debt deferral. And all that's doing for a lot of our businesses is just pushing off the inevitable by 12 to 18 months. Right. The joy and the pain of being in the hospitality industry is when things are good, you're doing fantastic. But in this time, when you're shut down, that revenue is lost forever. Right? If you need a new car, but can't afford a new car right now, but you need a new car, as soon as you can afford a new car, you're going to go get it. So that industry, yeah, it's probably been hit as hard as anyone else, but it's going to bounce back because people are going to buy a new car. Well, people visit those restaurants, 3, 4, 5, 6 times a year, and just because they haven't been able to visit them for the last 2 months and maybe another month before they're allowed to visit, doesn't mean they're going to make up the visits that they missed out on. Right. So we really need to switch the thinking in this, for the tourism sector away from debt deferral and really start talking about what can you do to provide financial aid to help them as they start back up, because the rent thing isn't really working. A lot of someone said 1 in 5. I've heard, I think it's probably closer to 1 in 10 might take people up on it. a lot of arguments from the landlord saying, well, we'll just get someone else to come in. I don't think they're grasping the full situation. It's not like there's going to be a ton of people with extra money to open up a restaurant if one's closed down. So I think that's the number one thing would be to start talking about financial aid instead of debt deferral.
Right. Do you agree?
I agree 100%, because our industry, the tourism hospitality industry, unlike a lot of others, it shut down very quickly, very fast, because it involves welcoming hundreds of people or in a restaurant, or thousands over a month at a hotel, and they totally shut down. People stopped traveling. So revenue was totally cut off in our industry. So we need a different type of help. Now, the town of Georgina stepped up a little bit, and that's hats off to them with their Georgina Emergency Recovery Benefit. And the good thing about it was, it is, that Chuck was referring to, was a grant. So that might help with a couple of months' rent, depending on who the operator is. And that had to be paid back. That was a really positive move on part of our community. It helps go to the point that Chuck.
We just have a minute left, so continuing on that wants and needs, what do we need from the community? Is it really all about community support and supporting local?
I think that if you are looking at it from the business operators, I think what we need is for them to really reach out to each other in this time that they're slow, and start figuring out how do they work together to build themselves back up when people are allowed to come back. In terms of the residents, I think you've hit the nail on the head. You move there for a reason, right? So start to support all the businesses and the local community that's open, and as they reopen, so that your community stays healthy and doesn't end up with big gaps in terms of its services and in art, culture, tourism, hospitality.
Very good. And the perfect way to end the show. Thank you so much. Just want to thank both of you for being on the show today. Also want to wish a very happy birthday to Jim.
Thank you.
It's nice to be on a TV show.
That's right. I don't often get invited on a TV show for my birthday, so that's probably a virtual present, that one I'll never get again.
It's an amazing virtual present. I appreciate both of you being here, and I appreciate everybody at home for watching. Thanks so much for watching Mind Your Business, and we will see you next time on the show.